Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Private Annabelle Grounds. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Archibald Nevin, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Archibald Reinmuth Nevin. Archibald Nevin was born on the 19th of August 1892 in Illawarra, Tasmania. Affectionately known as Archie, he was one of 6 children and the eldest son born to farmer Robert Nevin and his wife Ada. Archie was educated at the local state school in the nearby town of Hasbin, where he took a keen interest in sports and cross-country running. He worked as a labourer on his father's farm, gaining the love of horse riding. He competed in riding competitions, and at the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, he held the rank of lieutenant in the Light Horse Militia Unit. Archie Nevin enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 19th of August 1914. He was allotted into the 3rd Light Horse Regiment and trained with them until late 1915, where he applied for a commission. He was commissioned to the rank of 2nd Lieutenant soon after and reallocated from the Light Horse to reinforcements of the 15th Battalion. After a short period of training with his new unit, Nevin embarked for active service, sailing from Melbourne on board of the troop ship Ulysses on the 27th of October 1915. After several weeks at sea, 2nd Lieutenant Nevin disembarked in Egypt. By this time, the Gallipoli campaign had been abandoned and Allied troops were slowly being evacuated. Nevin spent the first few weeks of his service training alongside other new recruits. His time in camp was marked by sickness which saw him spend multiple short stints in hospital, suffering from influenza, tonsillitis and dysentery. Reminiscing of home, he wrote to his sister Mary from Cairo, "I would like to see the dear old home now. I fancy I could see it, just as I have year after year at this time. The hay crops just about ready to cut, the fallow paddocks brown and dry with sheep running over them, the wheat crops all out in ear and waving in the wind, fruit trees all hanging with young fruit hanging in clusters. I fancy I hear Dole call out for us for dinner, and as per usual, I stroll down to the yard first. There I see dear old Granny and Grandad washing up, the Dickie singing in his cage as I go on and walk into the old kitchen that I love so well, and see my dear Mummy and Sissy dishing up dinner. Oh, how I could enjoy that dinner. Roast mutton grown and killed at home, new potatoes, green peas and mint sauce, then green gooseberry pie. I don't want you to think that I am sentimental, but when home, fancy draws a picture like one that I have attempted to describe. I have a job to keep the tears out of my eyes. Tears are not things for soldiers, are they, Mary, old dear? So I will look forward to the time when I, by God's good grace, will see not the picture, but the reality." In the new year, Nevin joined the rest of his battalion before embarking for the Western Front in June 1916. On his arrival, he was sent to the School of Instruction before being seconded to the 4th Australian Light Trench Mortar Battery, where he was placed in command. Attached to the 4th Brigade, Nevin's battery first saw action during the Battle of Pozieres in July, shortly after his promotion to First Lieutenant. The unit later fought at Mooncay Farm in August. After the carnage and destruction at Pozieres and Mooncay Farm, Nevin rejoined the 15th Battalion before travelling to the comparatively quiet Belgian front, where his unit engaged in training, building and maintenance tasks, as well as routine duty on the front lines. On the 23rd of September 1916, Nevin was leading a small party of men into no man's land on a routine patrol. Having made it to the enemy's wire, Nevin attempted to sneak through before approaching the German front line. As he advanced, he was spotted by the enemy, who began bombing him and his men. As they retreated, they saw Nevin wounded by shrapnel before falling into the enemy's trench. He was never seen again. One of his men later commented, "The boys were very sorry at his untimely end, for he was a very fine officer." Lieutenant Archie Nevin remained listed as missing for several months. In 1917, with no further news of his fate, he was presumed to be, for all official purposes, to have been killed in action during this patrol in September 1916. His body was never recovered from the battlefield. Today, he is commemorated on the Meningate Memorial in Ypres, among more than 50,000 others who have no known grave. Archie Nevin was 24 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Archibald Reinmuth Nevin, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
We that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.